Hello, good morning class. This is going to be our final lesson of the unit, lesson 4. So go ahead and make sure you finish up that do now. Grab a piece of paper and pencil so we can complete these notes. And afterwards you will have 2 discussion posts to answer. One of them is going to be a question I post regarding what you've learned. And also another one is answering your essential questions. So first thing, this is your EQs for the day. The topic of the unit is genetic variation and meiosis. So number 1, why is genetic variation good? 2, if everyone had identical DNA, what could be a potential problem? And 3, how does non-disjunction cause Down syndrome? So moving forward, we've focused a lot on asexual reproduction the past 2 to 3 lessons. Now we're going to focus solely on sexual reproduction. So things you're familiar with is when the sperm meets the egg and creates a baby. So again, sexual reproduction requires 2 people, whilst asexual requires only 1. Alright, first thing, sexual reproduction, you need to know that it's basically the production of organisms from 2 sources of genetic material. In this case, sperm and an egg, right? 2 parents. And just a word you need to know is zygote. Zygote just means a cell that is produced by fertilization. So that means a zygote is when, an egg and a sperm meet. So moving forward, why is this important? The reason why sexual reproduction is more important than asexual is because when they reproduce, it creates organisms with different genetic combinations, right? Think about it. Are you and your siblings exactly the same? You're not. You have separate and different DNA, even though it is similar, but it is different. Now, again, back to our previous lesson, humans have 46 chromosomes, right, in your whole body. So that means you got half of it from your mom. So your mom's egg has 23 chromosomes because it's a haploid, and the other half is from your dad's sperm. Again, it's called a haploid, right? So that only has 23 chromosomes. Okay, what is genetic variation? Basically, all that means is differences in DNA that leads to different traits, leads to physical features. Different traits and different physical features. Again, it is different for everybody because your gametes, your sex cells, right? Each of them have different variations of DNA from your mom and dad. Real quick, here are the advantages of sexual reproduction. 1, genetic variation. And here's the essential question answer to number 1. The reason why genetic variation is good is because one factor will not kill the entire population. Let's put it this way, right? We found out that cancer is caused by DNA in your cells, right? By cells not having the proper checkpoints. So, think if everybody had the exact same DNA, and your parent cell had the DNA code that causes cancer. What would happen to the rest of the population? Everybody would most likely be affected by that cancer and potentially die. So this is why genetic variation is good. If you don't have genetic variation and there's something faulty in the DNA, then whatever kills one person will kill everybody else. Now here's a disadvantage of it. In order for you to sexually reproduce, you need to find a partner. So that takes a lot of time, and by then it's not as quick as bacteria's reproduction time, right? It takes for humans 9 months. And another issue is unfavorable genetic combinations. So thinking about what trait do you have from your parents that you didn't like, right? It could be your height. It could be maybe your nose. Maybe for me, I do not like the size of my feet. So those are unfavorable genetic combinations. So you might not get the DNA that you want from that parent. And even more serious note, that could also be from diseases that come from a parent, right? So there's always that risk with sexual reproduction. Now, here are the pros of asexual reproduction. It's very quick, speedy, and you can make a lot of copies in a very quick time. The issue is, again, lack of genetic variation, which again we talked about. If one parent has faulty DNA, then the whole population is going to have faulty DNA. So for humans, we want to have genetic variation because we have a lot of risks coming our way, and it takes a lot of time to make more babies. Now, we're going to talk about how we get forms of sexual reproduction. The first one is, but first you need to understand what these terms are. Real quick, homologous chromosome, all that means is pairs of chromosomes that you get from each parent. And a tetrad is a pair of two homologous chromosomes. Okay? So, a homologous chromosome is basically a chromosome from one mom and a chromosome from one dad. While a tetrad is the chromosome of your mom, the chromosomes of your mom and dad together. Moving forward. Now, how do your sperms and eggs get different DNA from each other if they're both coming from one parent? Here's how. Each sperm can become different because they have something called crossing over. This occurs when homologous chromosome or homologous pairs come together and switch places with the same part of the other homologous chromosome. Prophase 1, circle that term, prophase 1. You need to know that crossing over occurs there. If you notice in this picture, crossing over is when the two chromosomes, right? We have a tetrad here. They switch parts of the DNA. Before we had all blue, and on the right we had all red. After crossing over, we have a blue with a little bit of red, and on the right we have red with a little bit of blue. Now, here's what happens in the sperm. When sperm cells are made, potentially this is what occurs. This blue part goes to one sperm cell. This blue with a little bit of red goes to another sperm cell, right? So this all blue one could be you, while this blue and red one could be your little brother. While this red one with a little bit of blue, that could be the older sister. While this one with a lot of red could go to another sperm cell, which would be your probably eldest sister. So this plays a key role in how each sperm cell has different DNA to make a different baby. Alright, and this results in something called gene recombination, because you're combining different parts of your DNA. Now, another word, independent assortment, it's basically chromosomes randomly choose which sex cell they want to go to, which gamete. So it's like if I didn't have assigned seats, you would say, alright, some people choose left side, some people are going to choose right. It's going to be completely random. So that plays a part in genetic variation. Another thing is non-disjunction. This is when homologous chromosomes don't properly separate during anaphase. And this actually leads to Down syndrome because now people with Down syndrome actually have too much DNA. They have an extra chromosome, specifically in the 23rd pair. We'll talk more about that later, but you just need to know non-disjunction your chromosomes don't separate, and that causes a lot of genetic issues. And finally, random fertilization, right? So can you choose, when you're having a baby, can you choose what sperm you want to reach the egg? Or females, can you choose what egg you want to get fertilized? No, it's completely random. The egg can be fertilized by any sperm from just one ejaculation, and that's just completely random. You can't choose. Okay. And finally, the sources of genetic variation is gene mutation. We're going to talk about mutations later, and actually this plays a key role in COVID-19 because genetic mutations doesn't only happen in sexual reproduction but also asexual. So gene mutations can occur during duplication of the DNA at the end of interphase before meiosis or mitosis can begin. So basically that's when your DNA just randomly changes. There was you were completely healthy, the sex cells were completely healthy, but then boom, something changed, and now your kid might have a genetic defect, or the bacteria might have a genetic defect and evolve. So that is our final lesson for the day. Please let me know if you have any questions, and y'all have a great spring break. We'll continue on with the next unit after this.